What is up, everybody? Welcome to Townsend 505. We're me and Ryan and Jason's going to accompany us with this video. But today we're going to be talking about the second Quentin Tarantino movie, and that is Pulp Fiction. Before we begin, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing very well, Nick. It's good to be back. I had a great time talking about Reservoir Dogs with you, so I have been looking forward to this because Pulp Fiction is very good. There's a lot to discuss.
Yeah. How about you, Jason?
I'm doing good. We discussed some kinks today, and then I went and worked out and ate some supper. And now we're back talking about Pulp Fiction.
Yes. Gotta love it. Yeah, before we were talking about kinks singing about how we're gonna do it again. Now we're gonna talk about a movie that does it look like a bitch?
Does it look
What?
like a bitch? No.
What are our just like brief thoughts on the movies before we start getting into just talking about the characters?
Yeah, I guess I have somewhat of an interest because I am interested in when you guys discovered this film. Because I remember when it came out in theaters back in '95, was it? Or
94.
94. So I was only about 11 years old when it came out. So I was, pretty young. Of course, way too young to see this movie.
Don't say.
You don't say. I do remember the commercials, though, were pretty interesting with the music. And the biggest memory is seeing John Travolta do this thing.
That's a good scene.
Yeah, I remember that in the commercial and being like, what is this movie? Like, I didn't know. I had no idea who Tarantino was, of course, and all that. But I do remember the movie being like kind of this cultural phenomenon at the time and people talking about it. And of course, I had no interest in watching it as a kid. It was obviously I knew that it was like way too mature for me. So it wasn't until later, I don't know if I was late teens, early 20s, I caught it on TV. And I was like, oh, yeah, this movie. Like, this movie, I remember being a big deal. So I was like, I'll watch this, But it was on TV where they cut out all the worst stuff. So I kind of missed. You still got some pretty good stuff, though. Even though they cut out, like, the worst stuff, you still kind of got what was going on. You're like, oh, my God. And I was floored. The first time I watched the movie, I just remember going, like, I had no idea about the plot, really, or what was going on. I mean, it's groundbreaking. I guess I don't know what to say except for, to me, it was groundbreaking storytelling that I had never seen before in a movie. Like, that's what floored me. I was like, you can do this in a movie? You can tell a movie out of order? Like, I never thought of that, doing a scene from this time period and then later in the movie doing a scene before that and how it all kind of ties in together. That's what I most took from it. I was like, that is really cool editing and filmmaking that I never thought of before. And I think you have to say also it's Tarantino. He has this way of writing dialogue that's very unique to Tarantino. And that's what made the movie so cool is that dialogue this between characters that you're like, wow, this is really cool. Like there's something really interesting about it. And all his movies have it. He has this, definitely has his thumbprint, on every film because he writes them. And they have his style to them. Besides, the movie was a bit shocking at times. I remember a couple of scenes, if we talk about it, I was like, "Whoa, okay, I didn't see that coming. That was crazy." Pretty much throughout the film. So it is just a fun, entertaining film, in my opinion, that really changed kind of the way we make films in a way. I think people try to emulate this film after it was made. It was such a big deal at the time. Anyways, but yeah, that's what I think.
Cool. But you, Ryan, you have any just thoughts about the movie before we begin?
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed this. I saw it for the first time in 2014 for its 20th anniversary. It came to my local theater for a Fathom event, and my dad took me to see it. He had to explain a certain scene to me, which I imagine we're gonna get to, because I had no idea what was going on in that
Oh my
one.
gosh.
But you know, Jason touched on it a bit. I would argue that this is the most Tarantino of all of Tarantino's movies. It's like the Tarantino Rosetta Stone. Every trick and trope that you would see in his later movies almost kind of starts here, and you would see it in Reservoir Dogs too. But I stand by that this is the most Tarantino of all his movies. Lots of swearing, lots of references to things
Yeah.
that exist, like movies and music and all of that. Samuel L. Jackson in every single frame possible, or well, tangentially possible. This is like all of the Tarantino isms almost begin here. Is like ground zero for Tarantino as a filmmaker almost.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I'd say this was like the first movie was like him just making a movie as a director. This was like when this was the first movie where he's like, okay, I'm gonna start doing what I want to do now. This is like when I start putting my twist on what I feel what a movie is. I mean, they kind of did with the out of orderness with Reservoir Dogs because they kind of do it, but not as much as this
Kind of.
movie. But Tyler commented, I dare you, I double dog dare you, Royale with cheese.
Oh, great. Well, one that was the most iconic lines of all time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's also it's also it's also crazy to think that like this movie is 30 years old this year. It came out
I
in
know.
94. It's
Yeah.
2024, so it's the 30-year anniversary. It's crazy
Yeah.
to think about, and yet it's just as still feels as fresh as when people saw it in 94. Like this style has been replicated, but it has never truly been duplicated. That's in my opinion, at least.
Mm-hmm. I've actually not seen this movie. I
haven't
recommend
seen
you watching it, Tyler.
You
It's
just know
definitely gonna
about
be a
it.
wild. It's gonna be a wild horse ride for you, though, Tyler. So keep an open mind when you're watching the movie. It could get crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say if you're gonna listen to our review, you're gonna be like, "What the heck is this movie?" But uh, yeah. As for my thoughts, I think this is just an amazing movie. Of course, this is most people's first introduction to Tarantino.
Yeah. It
This
was
is
for me.
my first. This is the first movie ever seen from him.
Yeah.
This and Reservoir Dogs were my introduction to him, so it was cool being able to review these first two movies, basically. Yeah, this is a huge step up from the first movie. I thought the first Tarantino movie was really good, but this is like even better. I might argue, a lot of people argue this is his best movie, and we'll find out if I agree or not. But without further ado, let's just go. We're going to talk about each important character. Let's talk about the first two important characters: Vincent Vega, played by John Travolta, and Jules by Samuel L. Jackson, played by Samuel L. Jackson.
I mean, you have to say these kind of really. It was a comeback for Travolta. I remember talking at the time, and Samuel Jackson, I suppose, was somewhat big. He wasn't really a big actor at this point, I don't think. So this really launched Samuel Jackson, I think, this role. Anytime I think about Samuel Jackson, I think about this role. Was like the first time I was like, "Whoa, this guy can act!" I mean, this guy is awesome when he choose scenery and just let go in the scene. He is fun to watch, and I've always enjoyed Samuel Jackson. Anytime I see him in a movie, I think Travolta, he's very low key in this movie. It's weird that they both got nominated for Oscar. I think Samuel Jackson probably should have won the Oscar. He was so good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's my favorite character in the movie. He steals every scene. Travolta, I don't think it was really a best actor style role necessarily. It was a fine role. He's obviously like on heroin or something like that, so it's like very low key kind of thing, and he was fine in it. But it's really Samuel Jackson to me that really carried the movie.
I love Travolta in this movie. One of the scenes from this movie that I will go out of my way to watch every time is the entire sequence at Jack Rabbit Slim's, from where they pull up, Uma Thurman goes, "Don't be a square," to when they order, to where Steve Buscemi makes a cameo as Buddy Holly as their waiter, and I love how Vincent Vega reacts at the fact that they actually can get away with making a $5 milkshake. I was just in there like, wait till you get to this year, it's gonna get higher. But at the same time, I just love his reaction. Like, $5 for milk and ice cream. You don't even add liquor in it or anything. Like, it just blows his mind. Here's a part of me, I just love that. I don't know why, but I do. And then, of course, there's the Jack Rabbit Slim's twist contest from the Ed Sullivan impersonator, and that whole scene is great. Soundtrack to "You Never Can Tell" by Chuck Berry. I mean, that whole sequence I'll watch every day. It's such a brilliant sequence. I can't put my finger on why. It's just smooth. It just is so smooth. These characters just feel natural for some strange reason, and they're criminals. They're basically criminals. I don't think we want to meet them in real life. But half of the enjoyment of this movie is seeing these very bad people just be cool about and matter of fact about their jobs. But we'll cross that bridge, I imagine. But that entire sequence is just awesome.
Yeah. And for me, I'm a big fan of Vincent Vega. I think he's a really cool character. It's probably my least favorite of all the characters, of the big characters. But I still think he serves a very important role in the film. Of course, there's that scene where I'm not gonna say it now, but something happens and he had to go back to his dealer.
Some drugs.
This whole panic scene happens, and I want to talk about that more because that's probably one of my favorite sequences in the movie. I don't want to spoil too much of it here right now, but that's probably my favorite part in that whole thing. And another thing that's funny about Vincent Vega is that every time he goes into the bathroom, something bad happens.
Yeah.
He's in the bathroom at the diner. The diner gets robbed after that.
Yeah.
He goes to the bathroom when he's at Mia Wallace's house. She overdoses. He goes to the bathroom when he was at the apartment for I'm trying to think of the name. Hold on. Butch, the boxer, and he ends up getting killed. So every time he gets into the bathroom, something bad happens. It's kind of like the whole orange thing in the Godfather movies. Every time he goes to the bathroom, something bad happens. Which is
oranges are Vito Corleone's weakness, and bathrooms are apparently Vincent Vega's. Who knew?
I know. And as for Jules, I mean, I agree with Jason 100%. He's the best character in this entire movie. Every time I see him on the screen, I'm like, hell yeah! It's just I can never get tired of him. Every scene he's in, he's badass. In the diner scene where he's of course, one of the robbers, he's like, what's your wallet look like? And he's like, it's the one that says bad motherfucker on it. I'm like, oh yeah. That's just awesome right there. He's just the epiphany of what cool characters are. He's just, you look up the definition, awesome, cool character, you'll see Jules as the picture. It's just,
the random tangents he goes on in this movie are wild. Like when he talks about the coffee at Tarantino's character's house, they're like, "This is some gourmet shit." To where they are about to go in and interrogate those guys about the briefcase, and he talks about foot massages. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so cool. Like, Jules is so cool in this.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I think this is Samuel L. Jackson's best part two, and I think this is my favorite role he's ever been in too, in
Me
my
too.
opinion.
That's my favorite role.
Like, I think he has some really other awesome roles. Like, I think he played a really good role in Django Unchained. I thought he played a really good role in that one. But to me, I don't think he'll ever top this performance. He really stole the show on this movie, and yeah, it's just to me, it's clear. This is definitely, to me, the best character in the movie. I know I'm not in the minority when I say that.
It's gotten to the point
But-
where when you don't see Jackson in a Tarantino movie, it gets concerning. Like, when he wasn't in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, something's missing here. And I like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
But I was just sitting there like, there's something missing here. Like, it's like he needed to make at least like a cameo or something.
I know, and in the first movie too, he was not in it either. He Tarantino wanted him in the movie to play as Mr. Orange, but he wasn't able to. He wasn't able to perform in that movie because he was involved in something else. So to make up for that, Tarantino put him as Jules. So
Yeah.
on one
I think
hand, he could have been.
did he make it specifically for him? I think. Or
Yeah, he made that character specifically for
I thought, yeah.
Jackson.
Something, something tells me that Jackson he missed it on the swing, but he got it back on the roundabout, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Orange, I think, was, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he was supposed to be Mr. Orange in Reservoir Dogs, but then it ended up going to Tim Roth, which it worked out because I think Tim Roth is a better actor for that movie. I don't think Samuel Jackson would have filled the role nearly as good, but that's just my opinion on that. Next, I'd say important character in the movie is the boxer, which played by Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis is another actor I've always enjoyed, of course, because he's also he's usually kind of good at playing tough guys, but also has a sense of humor and has good, as you know, all that stuff like that. Yeah, it's interesting. His story is almost this whole different story that goes on. It's like we bounce back from different characters, though they do tie in together a little bit. His story, I'm not as a fan of because it goes in some pretty crazy places that I'm not about. But Bruce Willis is very good. I do like him.
I like how we meet Willis initially in the scene in the bar where he's talking to Marcellus Wallace. We don't see Marcellus Wallace, but the voice of Ving Rhames is unmistakable. And it's like, in the third round, your ass goes down. Or I think it's third or fifth. I forget off the top of my head, but something like that. But then just his whole story arc of him not going down and then him just trying to get out of Los Angeles. And he's almost out. Then he sees Marcellus Wallace walking across the street randomly. Like, what are the chances?
I know. It's kind of like how Buffalo Springfield formed. It's like, what are the odds of them like meeting up in that one specific area? It's like so weird.
In Los Angeles, too.
I thought Butch was a great character. I will agree his storyline isn't as interesting as the other storyline with Vincent and Jules, but I still think it's very interesting at points. Like, probably my favorite character thing about him is that I'm not going to go into detail of the scene yet, but he had a choice of leaving, but then the part of him, like the respectful part of him, was like, I can't leave him behind. I can't leave this guy behind. You know, just goes to show what he's, what kind of man he is. He's just like, I can't leave him behind, and then he ends up doing his thing. But I want to go more into that but I respect the heck out of Butch for that. It's just like he could have left him behind, Marcellus Wallace, but he didn't, which I got to commend him for that. Now for might as well talk about the Wallaces, Mia Wallace and Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah, so Uma Thurman playing great performance. She might have been nominated as well for an actor. I can't think if I've ever seen her in another movie before. This might have been my introduction to Uma Thurman. And yeah, she was fantastic in her scenes, of course. She's really good with that dialogue as well. As Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, she is really great in those two movies as the main character. So, she has some crazy scenes, that's for sure. They're very memorable. Even though I don't know if she's in the movie that much, I think about it. But
not really. But she has the scene where like she nearly flatlines after taking the heroin.
Oh my gosh!
And Vincent has to like do that scene. I'll never forget how shocked I was when I first saw that.
Oh.
I'm like, oh my God, she's dead. And then he does the thing, and she's like, oh, it like comes back, and then they're just casually driving home. Yeah. I'm just like,
she died, and
wow. No, just nearly died. Nothing too major.
Like, just please don't mention this to Marcellus.
No, because Marcellus Wallace will probably either kill you himself or probably find someone to do it for him.
Yeah, that scene, I don't like needles, and that scene, oh my gosh, I'm like, oh no, don't stab her. But he had to. I was like, I don't know if I could do it. I was like, that freaked me out.
Mm-hmm. Especially considering that Vincent Vega's probably on illicit substances in that moment too, so it's like, it's like either it's like the poster from Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. Or they lose in that case.
Yeah, what a nightmare situation. Uma Thurman's great. Yeah, definitely. Marcellus, James. Yeah, again, he's not in it a lot. I can't say a lot about him. Yeah, he's fine. He's always in whatever he does.
Okay.
Interesting to think that 2 years after this, Ving Rhames would be in Mission Impossible, and like that would become like the thing that he's known for.
He's in just about every Mission Impossible.
He's in every one except for 2.
That's what I thought too. Yeah. And Con Air, I think, around this time.
Yeah, he was in Con Air. I totally forgot. Con Air has a lot of people. Like Dave Chappelle is randomly in there.
I know.
Steve Buscemi is also in there as well. So yeah, but Con Air's another one for another time.
Yeah. Yeah, I find Mia Wallace to be a good character. I know she had that thing about her that she wanted to star in a TV show, but her pilot was canceled. And probably one of my favorite moments of hers is she told Vincent the joke, with the ketchup and all that. And my dad pointed out to me when we watched it the one time, he's like, yeah, you understand the way she's talking about it? I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, she's, you hear the disappointment in her because she really wanted to be in that show. And she's like, she says the joke as if like, man, I didn't get that show, which is crazy to me. And as for Marcellus Wallace, that was a good character for every scene he was in. Of course, Jason said perfectly, he wasn't in much. He had like a scene or two. Of course, there's that one part, which we'll get to, that one particular section of the movie.
Yeah.
But outside of that, he's a good like in a good like intimidating character. Like he's the big boss. He's like someone people would fear because he's like, he threw the one guy out of the window. He messed that one guy up because he gave the Mia Wallace the foot massage.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Just goes to show, like, man, you don't mess around with that guy.
Yeah.
So, and that's what makes the heroin scene so good, where he's trying to revive her. That you're fearing for Vincent because you're like, oh my god, that guy fucked them up just for touching your feet. How is he gonna react how is he gonna react finding out that the guy killed her by accident? It's like oh my god, what's gonna happen? It's like it makes you worried, and that's just great writing right there. Great writing.
Yeah, I think there's almost a fear for him of, I don't know, going too far with her just on that date. Like right? Wouldn't he kind of have to tell himself like, okay, like cool down, be careful. Like, a little scared if he did something too far, because she's a very, he had to kind of check himself a little bit.
It's clear that he has he being Vincent Vega, wants to he doesn't want to do anything too crazy that night, and inevitably that does happen because Marcellus Wallace's reputation goes far and wide. But Mia Wallace is very clearly, in certain regards, a bit of a loose cannon. And I think that was pretty well established without having to spend too much time talking about it. It showed through her actions. I guess that was my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say in a sense. So I can see a lot of people getting in trouble for hitting on. The way she
go medieval and all of that.
Go medieval, yeah.
Well, there's next two characters I'd like to discuss. Winston, the wolf, played by Harvey Keitel, and Jimmy Dimmick, played by Quentin Tarantino.
That's gonna be it, yeah. I think this is some of Harvey Keitel's best work, and really, he is only in 2 scenes.
He's barely in it.
Maybe just one. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but he is just great in this. I love how direct he is. It's like, pretty please, with sugar on top. Take off your clothes, or I can't remember the exact line.
He's the fucking car. Because Vincent's he's like, a please would be nice, and he's like, pretty please with sugar and chop. Clean the fucking car.
Because he's got a job to do, and he was taken away from a party for this. So time is very much of the essence for him, and I love the directness. I love the we have no time to waste attitude of it. I love the spirit of that.
Yeah, I love how they're getting offended by how brash, how demanding he is, and he's like, if I hurt, I apologize. We need to get this done. We need to just goes right in ordering them around, which they didn't like. But that is some great dialogue. That whole scene, and it's a great one scene character. It's like he comes in for one scene.
Also, he totally has the demeanor of something similar like this has happened before.
Yeah,
and so he's not panicking. He's just taking it in the sense that, okay, just another day at the office, and so he just is like, this needs to happen. This needs to go over there. Go to the linen closet. Get the furriest sheets and bed linens you can find. He is literally almost directing traffic, and he just does it so clinically, but it's done so well, and that you just, again, without spending too much time on it, you get the sense of this wolf guy is in the position he is in for a reason.
Mm-hmm. How about Jimmy, though? What do you guys think about Jimmy?
Tarantino.
I mean, I could take or leave that character, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the director, so I imagine that was very much I might as well put myself in it, and he was in Reservoir Dogs too, so there is a precedent. But that's like one of the only characters I could have taken or leaved. But that's me personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. This is one of his bigger roles that he's had in one of his own movies.
He had a bit of a role in Django Unchained. He was one of the
Very
one of
end.
he was in he was the Australian miner,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, all his roles are pretty short. This, because I want to say this might be his most memorable, but
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know because it is good. His dialogue with Harvey is pretty good. I just love how he's like, these blankets, they're like belong to my wife or something like that, and he's like, I think scared about getting blood on them. Or something. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. My thoughts on these two characters. Well, Winston is like, to me, the best. Is my second favorite character overall, and to me, the best of the short characters. He has like one or two scenes in the movie, and he has like such a big impact on the movie. Like you guys were mentioning, he's so firm. He's direct. He wants to get it done quickly because, like we mentioned, he was at a party, and of course he ends up getting called for that job. And yeah, I think he plays a great role. I think it definitely fits the character really well, and I loved him in Reservoir Dogs, and I really like him in this movie. I think he didn't really play much roles in Tarantino. These are like his only two movies, and it's a shame, really, because I think he's a really good actor.
For sure, and it's interesting. Like I think Keitel would have been really good in something like a Django Unchained or a Hateful Eight. I could definitely see him in the latter of those two.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm shocked. Yeah, or even like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too. You know.
Oh yeah, maybe he could have played himself or something. Was he acting around that time? I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure.
I guess we were just
He
watching
was.
Red Dragon, weren't we, Ryan?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was good in that too.
He was.
As for Jimmy, I'm not gonna mention the one particular thing he said because it is not that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my god, he really said that, and of course, since
It was
him and
it was the mid '90s. In certain circles, it was the style of the time. So
Yeah, there's been some criticism of the use of the word, and
I get where the criticism comes in this movie because
yeah,
there's no reason why it has to be used.
we need it.
I don't mind when they criticize him for this, but when they criticize him for that for Django Unchained, I'm like, dude, it was the times, you know.
Yeah,
What is he supposed to do? Like sugarcoat it?
right.
That was the times.
That's it.
Yeah, he was good for his role, but definitely the most memorable of the ones that he actually played, for sure. What are other characters? Christoph Waltz was in this movie. Christopher Waltz was in this movie very briefly.
Oh, Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken, yeah. I don't know why I mistake the name, but yeah, Christopher Walken was in this movie.
Yeah, that was a pretty good scene too. Gosh, I know it's funny. Pre Christopher Walken did that one dialogue scene, and it's just again him doing this whole monologue, and it's just Tarantino's written dialogue is so good. It's fascinating to hear him just talk about, and of course it's Christopher Walken's line delivery. So he hit it in the only place he could, or something like that. Ass or something. The way he delivers it is just so funny. It's like
in the way that only Christoph Walken could, like if you really think about it.
Yeah,
it is.
I got a comment.
Now here it is.
Yeah. Hey guys, favorite Quentin Tarantino movie of all?
For me personally, It's either this or Django, to be honest.
That's a good
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah, Django Unchained's my favorite. I think it's a really action movie, very humorous.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'll reveal my favorite movie from him at the end. Yeah, it's crazy. He just goes through this whole monologue about shoving a watch up his butt. Then it's funny, of course. It has its humor, but yeah, it's definitely a memorable scene in the movie for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have I have four more characters I want to talk about. We'll go two at a time again. Uh, First two, I'd say Lance and his wife, Jody,
The robbers.
the heroin dealers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The guy that Vega goes to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, who's the guy? He's played by somebody. No.
Eric Stoltz.
Oh yeah, the man who would have been Marty McFly.
Yeah, that's always crazy to go. That's Eric Stoltz. Yeah. Again, crazy scene. the him and Vega going back and forth like why'd you bring her here? And then you do it. No, you do it.
And then, like earlier, where Vincent's going on about the dude that scratched his car, and then like Stoltz just casually goes like, "There is no justice in this world." I love that scene too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the scene where Vincent's like, "Pick up the phone, Lance. Answer." And then Jody's like, she picks up she's like, "Pick up the phone, Lance." And then Lance is like, "Pray caller, pray caller." And then right after, like, Vincent comes rushing by and like crashes into his garage. My favorite part in that whole interaction was when so you're gonna stab her to the heart, and he's like, and then Vincent's like, "I gotta stab her 3 times." Just so funny. One of my favorite parts.
Oh man.
Yeah, Lance is a great character, and the last two characters I want to talk about are Honey Bun, played by Amanda Plummer, and Pumpkin, played by Tim Roth.
Man, because isn't that like the opening of the movie is them talking?
It's the opening and closing.
It's so crazy because they're like, what am I watching? We're watching. It's not any of the main characters. It's these two people just randomly in the restaurant having this conversation, and it's good though. It's like I'm kind of interested in the conversation going. Again, it's just the power of Tarantino style writing. Like I don't know, Ryan kind of said this. Like I feel like they talk about random things. Yet, like they can go on tangents that have nothing to do with the plot, and yet I'm all for it. I'm like kind of like, where is this going? And for them to sit there and all of a sudden it ends with that scene with, all right, everybody, put up your hands and whatever she's screaming. She's as Amanda usually does in movies. Seems like she's always going kind of crazy anytime I see it. That is an interesting scene, and the way it ends. Again, it's minor characters, but it's Tim Roth, and who's great, so it's really cool how that ties in with the rest of the story. Also, so they are cool little characters, minor characters in the movie.
Yeah, not to mention you brought up one of you brought up the diner scenes that bookend the movie. It opens with them doing a standalone scene where they're talking together, and then the movie ends with the titular robbery from the perspective of Vincent and
Jules.
Julius, Jules, excuse me.
Yeah.
But then you learn about Jules's desire to leave the life, and then Tim Roth's character Pumpkin is one of the only ones to actually see inside the titular briefcase, which has been speculated about still for years, even though Tarantino kind of killed the rumor on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think both these characters are great. I think the female is she's crazy. Don't get me wrong, she is nuts. Like in the beginning of the movie, she seems like this nice lady, and then like she gets all crazy. She's like, I'm like, oh my goodness, she went crazy right out of nowhere. Calm down. And then of course Pumpkin, Tim Roth's character. Oh my gosh, he's killing the role. I think the 3 movies he was in, he killed every role he was in. I think he was amazing as Mr. Orange. I think he was. I mean, to me, he was the best character in that movie, Mr. Orange, or at least my second favorite. And my favorite character in Hateful Eight is he's one of my favorite characters in the Hateful Eight as well. So that's Tim Roth, man. He's a great character. I think he's another character. He's another not character. He's another actor that I felt was really underutilized in the Tarantino, movies.
Yeah.
I'd say the person who was the most underused was not Tim. Trying to think of the name. Hold on. Give me a second. Steve Buscemi. I think Steve Buscemi should have had more roles in Tarantino movies because movie like Reservoir Dogs showed that he's a great actor when he's not playing
that's his best.
When he's not playing just a stereotypical Buscemi Adam Sandler movie plot character, and it's a shame that he was just underutilized on this movie too. He was just in there just as Buddy Holly, which is a shame. I think he's a great actor, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be our thoughts for the characters. What are our favorite scenes of the movie? Like scenes of the movie where like that's gonna stick with us forever.
Well, like I touched on, the entire Jackrabbit Slim sequence is one I go back and watch pretty regularly, and then the scene where Jules and Vincent interrogate the goons over the briefcase. Like Jules's dialogue in it itself is just a lot of fun. Where he just immediately takes control of the situation, starts out kind of nice and easy, be like, "You guys are eating hamburgers," and then breaks it all down, and then it just turns, and then just casually shoots the guy on the couch. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?" and then of course you get into the most famous part of the scene is like, "Say what again? Say what again?
Say what again?"
Which that whole sequence is great, but the build up to it, where it's like as soon as he sees the whole "Oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration?" I'm like, uh-oh, we're in trouble now. And sure enough, we were.
Yeah, they weren't going to make it out there alive.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and we thought one character was going to make it out alive, but we were wrong. Before we get into that, the best Quentin Tarantino movie is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In my opinion, it has the perfect balance of comedy and violence with Hollywood lore. That's a good choice. I thought Brad Pitt played a great role. I'm excited to talk about that movie. I find that to be one of his more underrated movies, if you're asking me. But going back to the movie, that scene where can't think of the name of the character, Marvin. They had him in the back of the car, and of course Jules and Vincent were shot at, and Vincent and Jules was like, "I don't know, man. That's an intervention. God is on our side. I gotta quit. God gave us an answer." And Vincent's like, "What are you talking about?" And he pulls back with the gun. He's like, "What do you think about all this?" And Marvin's like, "I don't even got an opinion." He's like, "Gotta have an opinion." Got hit the bump and got shot in the face. And my favorite part is how Vincent's just like, "Oh man, I just shot Marvin in the face," as if he spilt milk or something. It was just like, "Oh man, I spilt a cup of milk." He's just like, "Oh man, I just shot Marvin in the face." I'm like, "Oh my god!" And I was not expecting that to happen. I'm like, "What the hell is going on here?" This is hilarious, and it's like of course, that's when, you know, Winston comes in and they're cleaning it up, and but I love the character dynamic between Vincent and Jules, where like Jules is like really like scrubbing his hands, making sure it's all out, you know, everything's clean on Jules' end. But then once Vincent starts doing that, and there's like he like rubs blood on the towel, it's like and then Jules is like, "What are you doing, man?" It was like, "There's blood on here," and then Vince was like, I couldn't scrub it off. He's like, "Look at me, I scrubbed it off." He's like, "If I can, you can." I love the dynamics between the two in that whole situation. I love when they had to take of course they had to take their clothes off and all that and switch it with the not so desirable clothes, of course. They were no longer in the suits and ties and all that. And that's like one of my favorite sequences in the movie.
I have to go with what Ryan said. That is by far my favorite scene when Jules, like Vega doesn't really say anything. Jules just goes in there and starts talking to these guys, and they're scared to death of this guy. And the way he starts off and how it and where it goes, it's just brilliant storytelling on a scene. How to do a scene, how to do dialogue. I just love things like, you know, can I have a taste of your Big Kahuna burger or something like that? And then, can I have a drink of your, I don't know, the way he says it, funny. And then he said, you know what they just had a conversation about what they call cheeseburgers in France. And he uses that dialogue. He goes, hey, you know what or something like that. And the guy gets it right. And he goes, wow, look at the big brains on Brad. It's like, oh my gosh, that is so good.
Check out the big brain on Brad. Like, I love that delivery so much.
Because they have the metric system.
Yeah.
It's like,
of course, when they came in, it was breakfast time, and he was like, "What you guys having for breakfast?" It was like hamburgers, balanced.
Like I've never had one
for a nutritious breakfast.
Oh yeah, then he ends with the, you know, in the name of the Lord. He does a whole quote in the Bible. Kind of out of context, but the revenge, you know, and all this, and I'll have my vengeance, and how it's Samuel Jackson just being Samuel Jackson, going over top, the way he does it, it's so fun. I remember seeing that scene the first time and going, oh my god, that was one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen. Like, I was not expecting that to happen. And they're bad guys, yet I'm kind of rooting for them because they're like the main characters. Yeah, I'm like, these guys are terrible people, but yet I like
them. Another just great scene that I didn't really get to that I want to go more in detail with is that scene where Butch sees Marcellus Wallace, and they go through that whole action that whole sequence and all that, and then they go into that pawn shop, and you know the owner, and I'm not gonna go too in depth, but Marcellus definitely went through some bad stuff in that scene, and basically Butch was about to leave the store, and he was like, in all good conscience, if I was in that spot, I couldn't, I would never be able to take that, so I'm gonna go back because I can't just leave. I know we're in bad relations right now. You know, I basically stole his money, and he wants me dead, but in all good conscience, I can't let him be down there suffering like that. So goes through all this stuff. He was like looking at which weapon he wants to use, and looks up and got the big sword, and he's like, yeah, that's like probably one of the best scenes. Is goes down and he kills one of them, and of course Marcellus Wallace escapes from there, and you got the big gun and blows the one guy's genitalia out. He's just like, it's like, I'm gonna get medieval on your ass. Love, of course, that's like one of the most iconic lines in a movie. Definitely one of the highlights for me. That's just oof. Love that scene.
And then just before that, you get the Marcel's Wallace banning Butch from Los Angeles. They're like, you got 24 hours to get out, or something to that effect. And then Butch is like, fine. And then he leaves, finds his girlfriend, like, Zed's dead, babe. Zed's dead.
Zed's dead.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
For me, like, this is for me, like, that whole scene, like Tarantino, this whole movie's got some crazy stuff in it, and I'm kind of like, here's the line, and I'm like right on the edge of the line of what I take. And I'm like, okay, this is a little, but I'm kind of enjoying it. And then we get to that scene, and I'm like, okay, this crosses the line where it's too much for me. I don't like the scene. In fact, I skip the scene anytime I watch the movie. I never watch the scene. It's just too much for me, if you know what I mean. It just goes a little too far.
I don't blame you.
I'm like, I don't like this. This is not fun for me personally. So that's why I have a problem with this part of the movie.
I mean,
That's
I get it. I remember seeing it for the first time and was like, what is going? Like, I just couldn't like quantify like what was going on in that moment. I had no idea. And then like I found out a whole lot later. I'm like, what was Tarantino must have been having like a bad day or something to like have come up with something like that.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, of course, there's one more scene I want to talk about, and well, there's two more scenes I want to talk about. The one big one I would talk about is the whole diner scene. The whole diner scene is just, oh my goodness, it's one of the best parts of the movie is when, of course, in the beginning of the movie you see the couple's perspective, like, oh yeah, they need money, they go through all that, and then of course they're like they're stealing money, and they get to Jules, who has the briefcase, and they're like, I'm gonna want to see what's in that briefcase. He's like, you don't want to see it, man. It's dirty laundry. Like, lying to him. He's like, I don't believe you. And he's about to pull a gun on him, and then he ends up showing him, and then he points the gun at him. Now Jules is pointing at the gun at the other guy, and he's just like, it's like, we're gonna be calm about this. And of course the wife is going batshit crazy because she's crazy, and they're just trying to calm her down. And then when they finally calm her down, and then of course Vincent comes out of the bathroom, points the gun. And he's like, tell me when, and I'll shoot them. And he's like, and then she goes crazy again. And he's like, calm down. It's like, Vincent, shut the fuck up. Which is all that is, again, just shows that dynamic between Vincent and Jules. I love that. And another part of the diner scene. What's that?
There's no police at all. Like, what?
Oh
police?
yeah,
No.
I almost forgot to mention this, but in Reservoir Dogs, in the first movie, we get cops here. We got undercover cops. We get so much cops in that movie. And this movie, not a cop to be seen.
Yeah.
Not in the diner scene. Not in that section of the movie when Mia Wallace overdoses. Not the part where the two got locked up in that that pawn shop. No cops to be seen at all, which is to me crazy. And I almost forgot to mention that. That's another little thing you notice after watching both movies. It's on, you're like, one movie's cop oriented, and then the other one's like you don't see a cop anywhere, which is interesting. And I love the diner scene. Mr. Pappy said, Django Unchained is overrated in my opinion. The whole slave thing has been beaten into the ground.
Okay.
It's fair. What you guys got to say about the diner scene, though?
I mean, I don't think I can add on to anything that you just said, other than it is funny because that robbery feels like it lasts for ages. And Nick, I never thought about it until now. Like, someone should have been ringing like the silent alarm or something. And I know cell phones weren't weren't
Yeah.
that big of a thing, but surely, but they do exist. I mean, Marcellus had one of those big old brick phones that he
They
was
were
like
big. Yeah, cell phones back then.
like 15-pounder or something. So
Yeah.
someone should have been there like 911, hello, it's at the diner, get over here, or I don't know. I could be looking too deep into it, and I probably am, but I never thought about it until now.
I mean, they're having a whole conversation in there. I'm like, should you guys be trying to get out of there? Like,
Yeah.
I know.
they just casually walk away, I think, at the end.
I know. That's
And-
funny.
And Jules's whole "you're like the Fonz" speech may have worked for Pumpkin, but surely there's someone else in this diner who is like the opposite of Fonz in that moment, and like being like, "Someone get the police! Help! Help!" or something like that.
Yeah, what I like about the scene is Jules having this whole what do you call it? Epiphany, I guess, of
Yeah.
divine intervention or something. And I'm not gonna say it gets necessarily, but he like starts, thinking about maybe making some life changes after he just killed a bunch of people. And they're having that whole conversation, and and then that whole thing happens, and then he's kind of like, you caught me on basically like you caught me on a good day, like on normal day, wasted you, but today I'm gonna talk to you, and I just want my wallet, and go away. So I do like that whole how that last scene kind of affects this scene, and I like this is basically the last scene of the movie, right, where they just walk away. And
Yeah.
I kind of like it almost ends on a happy note because Vega doesn't have a happy ending to the story. So I like that we end with him in a good part. We end with Vega in a good moment in his life. I don't know if that makes sense. In a happier moment, end with that. So I kind of feel good for that character, even though I'm like, I know it's not going to end good for this guy, but like I'm glad I end on a good note with the character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great scene, and I just want to briefly go over again the whole scene with, they I know Ryan already perfectly described that awesome scene at at the restaurant with the date with Vincent and Mia Wallace, but after the aftermath of the date is a lot less. Let's just say cool-headed. We have. She overdoses. She almost overdoses. He tries to save her. We're us viewers are worried for him, and then she comes back to life from the thing, and I just love that part. That's like probably to me that's like the best part. Like Vincent's part, that's like the best part in that movie for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a great part. You guys just have any few more things to say before we give our score of the movie?
No, I'm good. I think I said just about everything.
What I really like about this movie, and I said before, is I love that there's like a scene where Jules and Vega walk into the bar or whatever where Marcellus works or something. I don't know where. That's kind of where that's one of the few times the storylines kind of intermeet with Butch and Vega, I guess. Doing some, he's I think getting something, and they're like in their underwear. They're like boxers and like a t-shirt. And when you watch it, you're like, why are they in boxers and t-shirts? Like it makes absolutely no sense. And then later in the movie, you find out why they're in boxers and t-shirts. And that's what I like about the movie personally is when later in the movie you get that reveal and I'm like, wait a minute, this scene that happened earlier in the movie happens later chronologically. I was like, oh, that is so cool. Like that's such a cool setup of like, why are they dressed this way? And then later on you go, oh, you get the payoff. This is why they're dressed this way. That's what I like about it. And I love that, like I said, I like you get what happens to Vega this happens to Vega, and you're like shocked. You're like, what? This is like the main character of the movie. You can't believe it happens. But then it goes to an earlier scene where he's still, alive, and you're like, oh, like, okay, so this scene happened at a later time. This scene happened earlier. And I don't know. I just love that idea of how, I can't say you can do it all the time, but I just love that. Like, wow, that was such a cool idea to do scenes out of sequence. And it kind of told the story in an interesting way that it wouldn't have been as interesting telling it chronologically, but somehow doing it out of order makes it more interesting to me personally, I guess. That's one of my main takeaways from the movie.
I agree with you.
Besides, I want to touch on. I think did it break a record? I think at the time for most F words in the movie.
I don't think I read on that, but I think you might be right.
I feel like it broke a record, but that record's been broken many times. Seems like every time, every year some movie comes out and it's like, oh, they broke the F word record. I don't know, but I remember at the time going, "Wow, there's a lot of F words in this movie."
There's a lot of curse words. Period.
Yeah, a lot of cursing. Shockingly at the time, I remember I was like, "Wow, I've never heard this many curse words." And Tarantino's kind of known for that in all his movies. Wow, he really amped up the. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't even know what the current record is. What movie it, but I don't think it's this one anymore, but at one time it was, which tells you something about the movie and what Tarantino brought to the movie industry.
Seriously, Pete Townshend's really creeping me out. The fuck out. I don't know how I'm creeping you out.
I think he's talking about the picture.
Oh yeah, that is a creepy picture of Pete Townsend.
Oh. Oh yeah. I was thinking about the picture. I'm like, I thought maybe the way I was reviewing them, I'm like, how am I creeping you out? And like, oh yeah, my YouTube logo. I'm sorry about that. Maybe I should maybe I might change my YouTube logo, but I don't think I might because I would have to ask Scott to change my YouTube intro again. Which I don't want to bother him for with that. Oh, yeah, I don't think Pete Townsend really looking nice on that picture, but yeah, I was pretty stoned when I saw the movie 15 years ago. Oh yeah, the briefcase. John Travolta's an iconic actor, but I didn't understand what the hell was in the briefcase. No one does. I've heard different theories. The briefcase is what you want to believe.
Yeah. Whatever.
I like to think it's like the world's strongest cough drop. Mr. Wallace has to have the cough drop.
I just another thought. Like I've never wanted to do drugs. Drugs have never interested me. But watching this movie really makes me never want to do drugs.
This is like a kind of drug PSA almost.
It does not look good. It's not a nice thing. It's not pleasantly, I don't get why you want to. It doesn't look good to me.
Yeah. It doesn't look like drugs will be getting you down the right path. Yeah. But what's everyone's score gonna be? And just to remind Jason, it's gonna be with 5 stars.
Okay, 5 stars.
Yep, 5 from me.
Yeah.
I'm giving this 5 stars.
I give it 4.5 because that one scene, it's a little too much for me. Plus, it is a rough movie at times. I say, and I don't usually watch rough movies like this, but the dialogue is so good. I think it won the Oscar for screenplay, I believe. It was nominated for Best Picture, it was a crazy picture nominee. A lot of Oscar nominees, and the director got nominated. Still hasn't won a director, surprisingly. But he's won screenplays, I think, at least.
Yeah.
That's his. I think I almost want to say his screenplay's biggest strength. Um, the filmmaking, the editing, incredible, and what makes this a very unique movie.
Yeah. The reason why I'm giving it a 5-star rating, well, for me, I'm just a big fan of this movie. And to answer Possessed Pappy's question in the beginning, what's my favorite Tarantino movie? It is this movie. This is in my top 3 favorite movies of all time, alongside Jaws and Shawshank Redemption. This is like a movie that I could just go back to any day of the week, any point in the movie. I could be flipping through channels, and I could just stop by this movie, any part of the movie. It's just one of those movies where it just engages me all the time, no matter how much times I watch this. This is, to me, Tarantino's masterpiece. And of course, I know I'm not in the minority when I say that, but yeah, this is my favorite movie from him for sure.
Yeah, only his second movie too. That's what's crazy. He's like, I mean, he's second movie, and this thing blew up. I mean, really blew up, and blew up Tarantino's career.
Yeah. What are you guys' final thoughts before we close out the stream?
It's only his second film, and yet, like, Tarantino found, like, his style. I think that's genuinely impressive.
Okay. How about you, Jason? You
One
have
of
any
the
final thoughts?
best written movies, as far as dialogue goes. Probably one of the best written movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Cool. My final thoughts, just another amazing Tarantino movie. Stay tuned next time where me and Ryan will continue our series on Tarantino. This is not going to be a really fast series. We're going to be going. This is going to be a slow series because I have a lot of YouTube related stuff going on music wise. There's just like a fun little like break in between music. Just get to talk about some great Tarantino movies. Next movie will be Jackie Brown. That's his 3rd movie. Very excited to talk about that movie, which will have Samuel Jackson play again. We'll have Robert De Niro, and those are like 2 really big actors for that movie. So I'm excited to talk about I'm excited to talk about Robert De Niro because that's like his one and only movie with Tarantino. So excited to talk about that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. So long.